right, everybody, thank you for joining us today. Nicole from www.cocreatingtoday.com. Today, I have a very special guest with me, and that is Deborah Montgomery. She has a website of her own as well, www.twiggy.com. And the thing about Debbie is she's also a student of mine, and we both studied under the same teacher. And in the reason why I wanted to have a conversation with her is because I wanted her to share a story, and it's a very powerful story. And the thing is, in astrology, we have what's called astrocartography. And what's astrocartography? It's basically a map of the world. And with your birth chart, you have certain lines that pass through certain countries and certain areas within your country. And for example, when you have a discussion with somebody and they just keep saying, I love a certain area of, the world. For example, Brody's father absolutely loves Costa Rica. Sure enough, he's got his Venus line there. And as well, he also got married there. So you really can't make this stuff up. Now, bringing this back to Debbie, we were in a group setting one time, and as I listened to the students talk, one thing within my business, my consultation business especially, I get a lot of psychics coming my way. Don't know why. Maybe it's because Venus is an aspect to Neptune in my chart. It's probably the guilty party right there. But the thing is, Debbie's a very powerful psychic in her own right. And what I found with psychics is that their charts drive them. And they just know something's coming up, and they just know that something they should be doing. And with Debbie, she had an innate sense to pick up and leave the area she was at and move to Hawaii. Now, the thing is, I just want to do a screen share for a second. And everybody will have access to astro.com. And when you go to astro.com, right over here, you have locational astrology. There's a section right here called Astro-Click Travel. You click on that. And what it'll do is bring up that map, like I was saying. And here you have a variety of lines. And if you see these circles here along the lines, these are called the zenith of a certain line within a certain area. And what is that? Well, the zenith is the height of the energy of that line that has to offer going through a particular area of the world. So, Debbie, you are born where?
I was born in Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. And in our group, I'm just going to put on your chart here. Because this obviously defaults to here. So people just have to put in their own information. So right here, you see right away this circle with a cross, and this is where she was born. And then she'll have a height of energy going into certain areas. Now, tell me the story, if you want to share with us exactly what was going on that made you have that moment of picking up and leaving where you were currently at.
Well, it started out as really a trip that I had taken in 2017 to Maui. And in that trip, what occurred was that we were in a boat, and it was whale watching season. I was at the back of the boat. There wasn't really anybody back there. And a whale came up out of the water, a full breach, and looked me in the eye on the right side of the back of the boat. And for me, I knew that it meant something. I really, at the time, didn't exactly know what it meant. The whale, again, I knew that the whale was going to pop up again. So I went over on the left side of the boat, and the whale popped up again on the left side, showing me his opposite eye. So right there, I felt somehow a deep connection to Hawaii. And then pan forward to when you and I started groups, I was in a pretty good amount of trouble physically. I had lost my thyroid in 2002. to a tumor that grew, what they call the hyperplastic tumor. They removed the tumor, and of course, as surgeons always do, they tell you that the surgery was a complete success and everything's wonderful. You know, go be well, my friend, and have your beautiful life. So all of that being part of the story, I went along and had my beautiful life. And I'm with this dog. Anyway, as things went along, I had been mentioning over the years, as strange as this may sound, I kept telling my doctor that I didn't feel like they got everything, that I felt like there was some tissue they left behind. They had told me, given that maybe 22 people in all the world of documented cases have regrown thyroid tissues, that that's just not possible. It couldn't possibly be you. So, you know, really not much I could do about the lack of believability of my story. But I knew at the time in 2002, for whatever reasons, while under anesthesia, I had told my husband that they left something behind and that this, what they left behind was going to cost him. So at the time that I met you, that was really becoming the story rapidly. I was taking thyroid medication, annually taking, getting my blood drawn for that process. Mm-hmm. And no one was catching that I was becoming exceedingly hyperthyroid. The cancer was creating thyroid of its own. So that being said, at the time when groups started, I think I was around 98 pounds. And I had saw my doctor, who then put me in hospice because they just couldn't see how they could possibly help me any further. So I was, by the doctor's notion of things, out of options. And I remember coming home and having this sense of when a doctor tells you that, well, you know, we don't really understand what's wrong and we don't really know how to help you. And we're going to put you in hospice. And, you know, I remember feeling a combination of relief and fear at the same time, because the word hospice is kind of, you know, it has a sense to it that there's no hope. And during this time, I was really feeling like, okay, if I'm going to pass, I need to do so in Hawaii. I need to go to the navel of mother where I belong. I need to go back home. And now that might be a strange thing to say because I was born in Portland. How could Hawaii be my home? But
and it's funny you say that. And I just want to stop you here for a second. It's because when you're mentioning the hospice, and I remember you talking about your experience, which you know, I had a hard time absorbing at the time because I have my own issues of, you know, dealing with people that either are near death, especially people that I care about, because I don't know, it's my own things that I have to work through, obviously, and I had a hard time hearing it because I didn't want it to happen. Right. And the thing is, mentioning hospice, and I remember you coming in week after week in those group sessions, and you're wearing a toque, you know, each and every time. And, you know, on like Brody's father's side, my son, there's 3 people that passed away from cancer. So, you know, they all went to hospice. And when you hear that term hospice, you know, it's a very concerning, you know, situation. And yeah, like the last one passing away 2014 in hospice. So and I remember you specifically talking about how drawn you were, you know, to Hawaii. And we stopped that group session because, you know, when you kept talking, I just couldn't help but take a look, and I know exactly where to go. And I just want to bring up something here. And here are the planets of Hawaii, you know, the islands of Hawaii right here. And you have your Pluto on your MC, going right through that. Venus on the MC, Sun, Uranus, you know. And I remember having a conversation with you that how you're shocked at the transformation that you're going through. And that's where Uranus comes in, you know, and you have the strength of all those lines going right through here. Mars on your DC, Chiron on your IC, you know, the wounded healer. And to think that you were drawn into this area just blew it, like it blew the whole class away. And so, yeah, I just wanted to show that right here. And yeah, if you want to continue from there.
Well, one thing I'm seeing, Nicole, that I'm finding fascinating, and again, you can't make these things up.
You can't. You can't.
But
And
Pluto comes right down over the line. It's where it hits Hawaii. I'm in Hawaii at the tip, the northern tip of the Big Island. And it is the landing place for King Kamehameha. The spirituality here in this area being something off the hook. And when I first got here, within a very short amount, I mean, a couple of days, it wasn't the new moon exactly, so this kind of blew me away, and I'd never seen anything quite like this. I had a visit from what is known on the islands from a night marcher, which is a type of spirit that is fierce. And what it was I was laying in bed. And again, at this point, I was 98 pounds. And this night marcher energy, he comes and he is pounding a drum and he's in my face and his face is fierce. Well, according to legend here in Hawaii, if you have an experience such as that, that is generally thought of as a dark energy. And yet I found it completely life-giving, because what he was saying to me was to get back my fire, to expect and connect to that great fire sacral energy that this place is all about. Pele, the volcano, you know, and I mean, it was fierce and fiery. And I've seen myself each new moon that I have done the ritual here, that I'm in a big drum circle, and that we are like a big sunflower dancing on our planet, bringing that balance. And that where I dance at is right here.
Huh. You know, and that's amazing. And you know what, as you sharing that story, I remember when you first got there, I said, oh yeah, that's right. I was telling myself you're sharing those stories with the group about, you know, all that energy that was there. And the thing is too, is that the help that you couldn't get where you're at, you're seeing somebody that you took a chance too, if I remember correctly, that was it a naturopathic practitioner?
Yes, and she was advertised as she had an interest in cancer, and
Okay.
that she practices barefoot medicine.
Oh.
And yeah, and for whatever reasons, for me, that was a light bulb that went off in my soul. And so when I got here, she wasn't actually taking patients, but she saw me within a day of my arrival.
Wow,
And
that's amazing.
yes, and I went in and I told her this was no holds bar. Here I am. And one of the things that I want to say about cancer that I think is a sad and deep misunderstanding is a lot of people view it as a disease of victimization. And I personally view it at this point as a process that I probably agreed upon in another lifetime from another dimension. And that it is part of what is meant to shape me and bring me to a point where I'm really willing to do my work. So when I talk about the cancer, I don't want anyone at any point to feel like it's a pitiful thing, because I think that people who develop these particular problems also develop perspective that you wouldn't otherwise have.
Yeah. And the thing is too, is that what I found interesting is once you moved there and you started working with this naturopathic doctor, what you were also doing was some work on yourself. And that's so significant with Pluto on the MC in that area, aside from obviously healing, some ancestral past karma, having, Chiron on your IC. But and not far from those islands, you have right here, Sun Uranus conjunction on your MC. So that's to awaken and to enlighten, the heartbeat of your chart, right? Because the sun is where we grow into in our charts over a period of a lifetime. And to have Pluto dead on that midheaven, which is all about, the direction in life, our public reputation, and, our status in the world, to have that, especially in, when we're talking about this, the direction in life, overtop Pluto, that's all about, the transformation and the rebirth that's called upon you when you're in that area. And over the process, and, through our dialogues, personal ones and those within the group, you've been coming to some deep insights, and that's where Pluto is at, right? So it has everything to do with deep purging and having, a complete different perspective and shedding what no longer serves you, and, owning your personal truth, as you move forward. And I feel that as you were coming to those realizations there, because you also have, just on the other side here, the North Node, the gains to be had in the direction of life. That line there, again, the zenith, the power of that line right there too. So there's so much gains to be had, but Pluto, you have to dig deep. And the thing is too, and I remember a specific conversation that I had with you, and the hardest thing, and it was a scary thing, Pluto's, the fears and stuff, was surrendering to a process. And there was a time in your healing process that it was very scary, and you're at a tipping point, like a fork in the road. And if you want to share with us exactly what was going on there.
Well, I was getting ready to go in and have a treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a guide, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It was a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine who had passed recently, who really came to me and said, if you do this treatment today, you're not going to survive it. And I was really feeling quite anxious and fearful. I weighed myself. I was now 94 pounds. I went into my doctor and I told her what I was sensing. I told her that I'd been told, and this guy, his name is Richard, he had said to me that they needed to test my blood, and he had very specific things he wanted tested. Up until this point, my doctor was going based solely on my diagnosis of lymphoma, and not, although she had run tests on me, she wasn't looking to rework me up, which is what it is called when you get lymphoma, any cancer at all. They do what's called a workup, and then they class it and categorize and all that kind of thing. So that wasn't really what we were looking to do. But I had some very specific things that Richard had asked the doctor to look at. So she asked me to go straight to the lab and get the blood test done, which I did. And within a few days had called me, and she said, well, you're in the death zone. There is no doubt about it. Had you done anything further, it would have killed you. Wow. And she and I, and this is bizarre, but it happened, we both started laughing, because it was like I was laughing at death. I was looking at what are the probabilities, right? That your labs say, you make one more move and it's your last one. it's on you now. You do what you got to do for it.
Right.
Where do you go with that? And I can just tell you that here now today, that we learned that my medication that had been being given to me, given that over the years the doctors were unwilling to listen to my truth, which was that I had regrown thyroid. In fact, I had regrown thyroid, and now it was utterly measurable, and they were overdosing me on thyroid. I was taking not a full dose. I never really was able to handle a full dose. I was taking a 3/4 dose, which now needed to be reduced half again. So that was one of the major breakthroughs for us. So now how we're kind of living with this, and I find it quite interesting as the times we're going in astrologically are what they are. I feel like Spirit knows exactly what Spirit knows, and I have everything I need to go forward. And in fact, I'm viewing this as possibly life-saving, because what happens if, as times unfold, medications get difficult to get a hold of? These are the challenges that we're up against as we move forward. And so the fact that my body has found this creative way of moving me forward into the times we are in now, I'm finding myself in gratitude for what my body knows versus what I know. There's some wisdom in it.
Yeah, and you know what? There's so much, and that's the thing, is that when it comes to the medical field, it's a relationship. And the relationship is not top down. It's at the same level. And, and it's all about creating harmony and balance. And the thing is, a relationship works, between a patient and a doctor, when you're willing to hear that other side as well. And when you're not getting that, there's an imbalance, because the patient knows their body best. And the thing is too, is like, especially a person like yourself that's so intuitive and in tune, with that inner knowing of there's something there, and that not being heard and honored is discouraging and disappointing. And to have found a woman that's willing to, listen to you and hear your truth and honor your truth and work with that, that is such a healthy relationship. And with that can, healing come. Because the thing is, if you look at the natural stages of the zodiac, Libra is the relationship, right? So if you have harmony, you have balance, the next step is Scorpio. So if you have harmony here, then you can have that healing, which is, one sign building upon the next. And to have found that in Hawaii was truly, like you're saying, life-saving, and it's mind-boggling. So, so you're saying, so you got the blood work done, and which confirmed exactly what you're saying. So what was the process from there moving forward?
Well, then for me, I think initially it was trying to decide what was the next best step. What do I do? Do I go to the oncologist now with this new bit of information and say, hey, see, I told you so,
Right.
So, do I go there? Right? Or do I recognize that perhaps the system doesn't work as well as we'd like to think it does, and that I might need to reconsider everything I consider important? And so the initial response to my situation for me was my doctor. Now, this is a kind of a funny story. I'd gone in and we were talking about, okay, she says, I would like to know before I go and turn these records over to the oncologist, do we go in and remove all mentions of your otherworldly spirits giving you guidance? Because she says, I don't want them to dismiss you in hand for this incredible psychic skill that you have. So that was one of our first conversations. And that really triggered in me something else, which was that, wait a minute, I don't know that I want to go on to someone else at all. And so I made a decision at that point to take a break.
I remember that. That's right. Yeah.
Right. To withdraw from any sort of forward movement in terms of treatment, other than what we were doing, which was reducing medication now rather as quickly as we could, because you cannot reduce thyroid any more than 12.5 micrograms per dosing period. So it is a little bit of a trick to bring a person who's basically in a thyroid storm down to a level that is safe. Mm-hmm. So that was being kind of done. As time went on, I started to sense that for me, when I really connected to that inner child that I have that has felt injured over the years, that had no voice, that didn't feel her voice matter. I started to say to her, no, you're a mighty lion and you have a voice, and no one's going to take it from you. And that right there was a deciding moment for me. I'm doing nothing more for this in a medical sense that would be typical. Now, I continue to see my naturopathic doctor, and we have figured out that my endocrine system is not making everything it needs to make because it was terribly taxed by everything that took place. And so her approach to this is and has been to meet the needs of my body as they really are from a natural perspective. And she's been able to turn me around. And today I weigh 116 pounds.
Like I couldn't believe it. Like the weight gain. And so we're at 22 pounds of weight gain?
Yes, 22 pounds, which the power of spirit, the power of mind and body, the power of a process and breathing, all coming together in a place that I feel such deep connection to. I don't believe I could have healed like this anywhere else. And I am, although still in hospice, I'm not actively in hospice.
Now, I remember, part of the series of conversations we would have in the group, as well as on a personal level, you and I, you're mentioning swimming in the ocean.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. At what point in your healing process did you make that a priority to do? Because once you started, you didn't stop. That I remember. And so when did you start that? And what was the drive behind that propelled you to make that commitment to yourself and your healing process?
Well, we'll go back to Richard. Richard, when he passed, before he passed, he was Native American. He was telling me that his sister was in the room with him when he was passing. And he said to me that he was a black-toothed shark, but he had no teeth right now. So this was as he was passing. And he said, had he had teeth, he would have ate his sister because she was irritating him. And so it was kind of funny. I mean, coming from Richard, who was autistic and nonverbal, this was pretty funny. And so, I took it as it was. And basically, I had a broken arm.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yes.
Right. And because of the cancer being in the way it was happening and, my weight loss and just everything about my situation, I just wasn't healing. I mean, they tried different things to get the arm to heal. And it was almost 2 years later and I just wasn't healing. And so the initial reason that we were not jumping in the water was because getting me in and out of the water was a bit of a challenge. But my husband decided that he needed to figure out a way to hook me on a line and get me out in the water. So the initial was that I had a boogie board that he would strap a line to, and he would just swim all over in the bay with me in the water. And for me, the initial energy was just to be in the water and to allow the vibrations and the energy to start to do its magic. And so the original was my broken arm. And little by little, I was able to get in and out. My arm has gotten incredibly better. And it's as if it almost never was. So having that healing from the ocean being a huge catalyst. And where this goes back to is, again, I'd had another trip in Hawaii when I was younger. I'd gone to Waikiki. And after that trip, I was going to a pagoda in Orange County, California. And there was a monk that was working with me on past life issues, current life issues. He was working with me. And I'd gone through, after being in Hawaii that time, I dreamed that I was in a washing machine in the water. And that the washing machine was really sloshing me about heavily. And two dolphins came. And they asked me if I wanted to get out of the washing machine, that there was a more natural way I could go. And so in that dream, the washing machine went away. And where I saw myself was floating in the ocean, learning to connect to the vibrations within the ocean, which very much prepared me for what is happening right now.
Wow.
And then later, I had another dream that after I had had this experience of learning to let go and swim with the rhythm of the ocean, in my hand, right in this area, I'd had a dream that this opened up right in here and out poured a bee's nest.
Huh.
And so when I spoke to the monk, he told me that there would be healing for me, and that the release of those things that caused me stinging pain would be set free from my body.
Wow.
So, yeah, so there's been, when we talk about me being here in Hawaii, there are so many different reasons why I needed to be here.
And it's reflected right there. It's not just one thing, right? You have many lines and many zeniths of the lines there. So it's you're exactly right. It's not just one specific reason, but it's just amazing. And that's the thing too, is that when I just happen to see psychics, through consultations, or, like in our group, there's yourself and Pearl that are both very psychic, and the other girls are very intuitive. And I just find it amazing time and time again how, their charts drive them, whether it be by, their natal chart or a relocation area. They just know when, they have to be at a certain place, certain time. And the thing is too, is that, and the great thing is, for certain things, yes, it's great to be at that certain area. But for example, I have Jupiter Pluto midpoint going through the island, Vancouver Island, and I don't have to be there to exercise that line. And that's the great thing about astrocartography, is that there's a powerful teacher, Jupiter being, the archetype, and Pluto, being powerful, that a Native American elder that I speak to on a regular basis lives right at that line. So, and that's the great thing about, astrology. It just never ceases to amaze me at, the power behind it. And the thing is, awareness is key, and, by working with all these energies, you can have, just like in your case, beautiful, phenomenal results. It's just mind-boggling.
I'm blown away. I mean, because myself, when you get told you're going into hospice, it feels pretty final. I mean, it's a pretty big statement.
You know what? I can't even begin to imagine. Yeah,
Right.
I can't even begin to imagine that.
And I feel like right now, I feel like what my body is saying is that that's not my story right now.
And you know what? The thing is, it's funny you say that, because there's a powerful story behind here too, is that sometimes, more often than not, actually, logic interferes with intuition. And sometimes we're propelled, to lean towards logic, because why? Logically, when things are, all said and done, put on paper, it makes more sense. But then there's something inside you that's just screaming, no, this is the way. And the challenge is just to surrender, and not only that, surrender, but trust in that process, and trust into intuition. And the more you exercise that muscle, what I found is the more powerful it becomes. Just like, when you're at the gym lifting weights, you get more and more refined, more and more fit. Same thing with the intuition. And it's definitely not something to be ignored. No question.
Nope. And I feel like for me, following whatever it is, that hermit energy, that guiding light in the night, and taking the right tunnel is opening me up to new life. And for that, I'm abundantly grateful. Well,
Deb, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And the thing is, like, it's such a powerful example of how astrocartography works in a person's life. And when you had shared, the weight gain, and, just like that turning point in your healing process, I was just beyond excited, beyond thrilled. And I'm like, this is just beyond amazing. And, of course, I continue to wish you an abundant journey in your ongoing healing journey. But, yeah, I feel there's, so much more to be said about this area that you're in right now. And, it's definitely not done.
No, it isn't done, but it's, but I can just tell you that what I've gained from being in this position I'm abundantly grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm grateful, obviously, for our connection, and for you being here with me right now, sharing your story. So I thank you for that. Thank you for being open and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, in sharing your story to us all. And for those of you out there who are looking to see somebody that actually does great tarot readings, this is the woman to see. www.twiggy.com, and I'll have the link below. And personal testimony, she often has these insights that she shares with me with going on in my whole life. And lo and behold, it's like, I'll hold it in the back of my mind, and sure enough, it comes to fruition. So take a look. She's, if I'm not mistaken, you're with Pearl as well, right? The both of you do co-readings, right? On Twiggy?
Yeah,
okay.
Pearl does the love readings.
Okay.
I'm not as good at those. I have to kind of know my space, and I'm more of a shadow worker. I'm more of somebody who's going to get in there and dig out your Pluto and talk about it. So
awesome.
Yeah. So we kind of cover the spectrum.
There we go. So there you have it, folks. www.twiggy.com. And I will be back, obviously, doing more videos such as this one, using real life examples to teach you the language of astrology. And don't forget www.cocreatingtoday.com. There you'll find some great educational products to help you along your personal learning journey in the language of astrology. Thank you for being here. Grateful, as always, for your likes, comments, subscribes. And Debbie, you do have a YouTube channel as well, right?
Yes, I do. It's just under my name, Deborah Montgomery. So it's easy to find.
Perfect. And I'll link that below as well. Do follow her on her channel as she shares with you her personal learning journey as she moves through the stages. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.